You're productive, you're successful, but inside it feels empty and exhausting. Why? At the start of this year, we asked over 1,000 high achievers if they wake up feeling tired or unrefreshed even after a full night's sleep, and 89% of them said yes. 78% of them also said they do not feel consistently energized throughout the day. Well, what if I told you that unmet psychological needs, not long hours and chasing goals, are what really lead to burnout? And that's what we're going to be unpacking in today's episode. And please, don't just take my word for it. McKinsey Health Institute in 2022 found that 76% of employees experience burnout when their core needs go unmet. I've personally experienced this too, and these stats come from a comprehensive survey involving nearly 15,000 employees across 15 different countries. So the research really shows that it's critical that the unmet psychological needs are contributing to burnout. Now, stress and our daily life isn't the enemy. Mismanaged stress is, because it leads to lack of fulfillment. And for high performers like us, it's common to live in one of two zones, either overstimulated and overwhelmed, or numb and disconnected. Now, there's a sweet spot in the middle where you're energized, growing and performing at your absolute best, and this is happening when your psychological needs are being met. Now, the big mistake is that most high achievers treat fulfillment like a reward for hard work instead of a requirement to work well. We go from one win to the next, but underneath it all, we're still drained because we're neglecting the real drivers of sustainable energy. So the big idea here is that you have 6 core psychological needs, and how well you meet them determines your energy, your stress levels, and how fulfilled you feel. Now, these 6 needs are certainty, variety, love and connection, significance, growth, and contribution. Now, certainty is the need for safety, stability, security, comfort, order, predictability, and consistency. Variety is the need for surprise, challenge, excitement, difference, adventure, or change. Love and connection is the need for communication, attachment, connection, intimacy, and love. Significance is the need to have meaning, to feel special, needed, and wanted, or to have a sense of importance. Growth is the need for constant emotional, intellectual, or spiritual development, and contribution is the need to give beyond ourselves, care for, protect, or serve others. Now, these are not random. When one of these goes unmet, your system, literally your nervous system, will compensate with stress, anxiety, or coping mechanisms like distraction and lots of other unhealthy habits. So let's break this down. Go ahead and grab a journal and work through this with me, because the more we can understand each of these core needs, the more we can design our life so that we can fulfill these needs fully and completely, so that we can perform well, be stress-free to a certain extent, and to have the impact that we really want in the world. And the more we can pay attention to these needs, the easier that's going to be. So the first thing I want you to do, go and grab that journal. Then inside that journal, find a fresh page, and I would love for you to draw 6 columns. So there's 1 column for every need. And then what we're going to do, we're going to look at every need individually, and we're going to observe how we feel about that need and observe our current reality within that need. So let's do this together. Let's take the first one, for example. So certainty, that need for safety, stability, security, comfort, order, predictability, and consistency. Think about that for a moment and ask yourself, how much of certainty do you need on a daily basis to feel okay? Because if we're not feeling okay, maybe we'll feel a bit unsettled. Like maybe we need a bit more consistency or predictability in our lives. Maybe we feel pretty good about certainty and we feel like, actually we don't need too much certainty. We don't need to know everything, 100% of everything needs to be certain. Maybe we only need like 70% or 60%. So take a moment and ask yourself, what do you need to feel okay? How much? So for the purpose of our example for certainty, let's go with 70%. We need 70% of certainty just to feel okay. And there's no right or wrong answer here. You can choose whatever makes sense for you. Then what we're going to do is we are going to ask ourselves, based on our current reality, based on right now, today, how much certainty do I have in my life right now, based on my current reality? So I know that I need 70% to feel okay, but right now there's a lot of uncertainty, actually, right? Maybe there's something happening at your work. Maybe there is something happening in your family. Maybe there are some things that are not very predictable that are causing you to feel a bit unfulfilled right now. Then how much is your current reality? Just jot that down in your column. So for the purpose of this example, let's say we're at 50%. So we're just under the okay line. So if this is me, I need 70% to feel okay, but actually my reality is 50%. So we need to address that, right? We need to understand, well, why? Why am I below the line? Why am I perhaps feeling unfulfilled with this need right now? So this is where I want you to address your like current reality and how you are fulfilling this need. Right? And we can fulfill these needs in healthy ways and unhealthy ways. So for example, maybe a regular income fulfills your need for certainty, right? But maybe you notice that maybe as a leader, you are trying to feel in control of your day by controlling every single minute of the day. Maybe you are being over controlling or micromanaging your team, right? Or maybe you are trying to make sure everything goes to plan, even if the plan isn't ideal for you anymore, right? So maybe control is actually contributing to our sense of certainty. And these are just examples, okay? So you can think about what makes sense for you. A healthy example would be, for example, let's say somebody who understands that they have an important need for certainty, but they know that life's going to happen. They know that they're going to need some breaks. They know that maybe something is going to happen that's completely unplanned. So maybe they reflect and adapt their calendar to reflect that, right? So they actually put breaks into their schedule, right? Maybe they get a team to support them with whatever it is they're doing, right? Maybe though there's some other things that you do, like scrolling on social media, or maybe you are constantly like having the same conversations, right? Maybe there's other things that are creating a sense of stability for you, maybe like family, right? There's many different ways that you can fulfill your sense of certainty. So in your journal, I would love for you to take a moment and go through and identify all of the things that contribute to your sense of certainty. And then what we're going to do is exactly the same thing for all of the other needs. Okay, so go ahead and score yourself. Maybe you need more of one and less of another. Maybe you feel like you've got a sense of higher sense of variety right now. Maybe for love and connection, you feel like you don't need too much love and connection. Perhaps maybe you're more of a 40% for love and connection. But maybe you feel like that's on the low side right now, and maybe we're only sitting at 20%. So go ahead and score yourself for all of these. I'm going to share with you some more examples of some of these needs though, because these are the examples that can sometimes be the tricky bit. So variety, the need for surprise, challenge, excitement, difference, adventure, and change. Now, this is one that we often see a lot of like startup founders, like entrepreneurs that are jumping between like new ideas and they're like really trying to figure out what's their thing, right? Or what's that purpose. And sometimes it can become unhealthy because we're chasing this constant stimulation, right? Or we're trying to avoid boredom as much as we can. And we're constantly looking for the next high, right? We're addicted to that dopamine that we're getting. So those perhaps could be some unhealthier ways to fulfill the need for variety. Healthier ways, for me personally, variety is a very high one. I love variety. It drives my husband nuts because he loves certainty, right? So we have to balance that out a little bit. Now, a healthy way that I found to fulfill this need is to actually, like, something simple is like get my meals delivered to me every single day. It adds variety to the food that I eat and my diet, but it also gives me a sense of certainty because I know it's going to be clean food delivered. Plus, it helps my need for growth from a health perspective because they're wholesome meals that fit into my life. They literally will fuel my week and it helps me to fulfill my needs effortlessly. Personally, I use Meals on Me that's based here in the UAE. If you're curious about how they could help you to fulfill your needs, you can find out more in the show notes. But ultimately, for variety, there are going to be different ways for you personally. How are you fulfilling your need for excitement, right? For that sense of adventure? Pause and ask yourself that. When you're ready, come back in and we do exactly the same for love and connection, significance, growth, and contribution. So just going to run through these for you. And again, these are just examples. So please do take your time and think about what makes sense for you personally. Love and connection, for example, right, could be from an unhealthy perspective, constantly posting on social media, right? Having a strong presence on there because perhaps we feel like we're not getting the connection in day-to-day life. Right, and we feel like the like on social media is actually fulfilling our needs, but under the surface, on that deeper level, maybe it's not. So we get to really question ourselves as we go through these. The next one then is a healthy example, I would say here, for a sense of love and connection is intentional time, right? For meaningful relationships, for spending time, like phone-free dinners and deep conversations and different activities, you know, all these different things, like quality time with family, friends, self-connection as well is critical, right? If we're not connected with ourselves, we're really, really going to struggle. What about significance then? Significance one is an interesting one because this is the need to have meaning, to feel special, to feel like you're needed and wanted, and to have a sense of importance. And this is very natural. Everybody has this need for significance and it shows up in different ways. So unhealthy ways to fulfill this could include things like obsessing over titles and salaries and this constant need for validation. And healthier ways to look at this would be potentially like different achievements that you have in your life, right? Are you celebrating like wins, like small wins as well as the big wins? Are you sharing what you do? Right? Are you sharing maybe the impact of what you do? Are you having meaningful recognition, right? Or are you leaning into the ego more than you would like? Be really honest with yourself here because honesty is the only way we're going to move forward ever. Then we have growth. This is quite an obvious one, right? Is we want to make sure that we are growing and we've got this constant feeling of development in our lives. Ultimately, if we're not growing, we're dying in a sense. We don't want to stay still. Nothing in nature stays static. So it's really important to think about that. It's like, how are you growing? Are you leaning into all sorts of different books and podcasts and videos? And are you then doing something with it? Because sometimes it could actually be an unhealthy strategy and way to fulfill this need if we're constantly reading books, for example, listening to podcasts, but we don't do anything, right? A healthy example would be integrating that knowledge, right? So you apply the lessons learned, you perhaps share them, maybe you are taking a course, right? Maybe you are having a growth goal in a different area of your life, right? What does that look like for you? And then last but not least, we have contribution, right? Basically doing something that can help somebody else, right? The need to give beyond ourselves and care for, protect, and serve others. So sometimes this can show up in an unhealthy way, like people pleasing, right? Being a yes person, saying yes all the time to everything without considering yourself and your own needs, right? But a healthier way to fulfill this need could be to lean into something that's important to you, right? What's your sense of purpose? Like, is there something you do that genuinely like lifts other people up? Is there anything that you're doing? Maybe you're volunteering, right? Or maybe you're just showing up fully, right? And well, and with love and kindness, right? That's a form of contribution. So I'd love for you to just hit pause. I know that sounds like a lot, but hit pause and think about, what are your needs? Are they being fulfilled right now? How are you fulfilling them? And then ask yourself, what needs to change? What do you need more of? Or what do you need less of? Or what else could you do to fulfill each of these needs? And your job is to basically just pick one. Pick one need that has maybe scored the lowest on your current reality, and just start there and start to tweak perhaps some of those daily behaviors that will really help you to fulfill your needs. Remember, fulfillment isn't a reward, it's your fuel. You can't outperform unmet needs. The key to sustainable success isn't more hustle, it's more alignment. Because burnout doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from doing too much that doesn't meet your needs. So please check in with yourself every week. Where are you feeling full? Where are you starving? Then feed the part of you that needs you to keep it alive, right? For the choices that you're making. If you want to know which needs specifically are keeping you stuck, we do have a scorecard specifically designed for high achievers. It's like 16 questions, takes less than 2 minutes to do, and you can then have a chat with one of our wellbeing specialists to kind of decode your results. And basically what that'll do, it will help to highlight perhaps some areas you're feeling stuck and how to fulfill your needs in a way that's going to create lasting change, so you don't keep coming up against the same kind of patterns and problems that maybe you are already. Until then, I'll see you in the next video. Take care.
If you enjoyed this episode and you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode.
Then share it with a friend who you think might benefit.
Spread the word. That's how we're going to impact the world, by helping each other.
We appreciate you so much, and as always, unconditional love and wellness to you.